News come out about companies in the stock market all the time, often resulting in significant change in the stock price. Like when Apple announced the iPhone, the stock soared. Or like when Volkswagen emissions scandal came out, the stock crashed. Or like when Johnson & Johnson had a crisis where several people died after consuming Tylenol laced with cyanide, and they had to recall 30 million bottles of Tylenol, which caused the stock to stay flat? Whether you casually follow the stock market or work as a finance pro full-time, you must have gone through this exact same situation where news come out about a stock you're following and you tell yourself, damn, the stock must be going crazy right now. You pull up the chart and it's just flat. Well, over the years, I have been casually following the stock market, and I realized some companies are way more reactive to news articles than others. And stop typing that passive-aggressive comment right now. I know that the stock market is basically horoscopes for young males, with a billion factors that affect the stock's prices day to day. But with that being said, I will now promptly ignore all of that logic and build a tool that will only focus on news articles that come out about a company, analyze their sentiment, and visualize the effect of these articles on a particular stock. In order to chart the companies, I need their stock data, and after some shopping around, I have decided to use Polygon API. Because it's free, here's Apple's hourly stock data over 1 week. Some hours are missing, but that's because the stock market isn't open 24/7. For this project, I will focus on the 50 largest companies in the US stock market. The next step is to grab all the news articles about a company, and this is a bit challenging since nowadays most websites don't want to be swarmed by bot activity. And the most common defense against web scraping is using a product like Cloudflare, which is exactly the wall I hit when I tried to web scrape some news websites. But thankfully, Daddy Google doesn't care, and I was able to easily web scrape Google News page. Looking at the HTML, we can find the article names through the anchor tags, which are usually the blue colored and underlined links you click on. So, I instructed this Python package to strictly return the anchor tags to me. But that wasn't the solution, since there are other anchor tags that are not links to news articles, such as random buttons on the screen, etc. Upon further inspecting the page's HTML, I realized that there are HTML article elements which have the correct anchor tags and the article's publishing dates in them. So after figuring that out, I was able to access the necessary information. So I've got my hands on hundreds of news articles, at least their titles for now, and I need to quickly analyze their sentiment. What do? Well, what am I, stupid? It's 2024. I'm just gonna slap some AI on that bad boy and call it a day. So I basically pass all the news articles to ChatGPT and ask it to rank the articles from -1 to 1 based on how negative, neutral, or positive the sentiment is. With this whole setup, I run my script that is supposed to be ran weekly, where it goes ticker by ticker, collects its weekly stock data, web scrapes all the news articles that came out recently, records their titles, timestamps, and the news sentiments using the OpenAI API. And everything worked flawlessly except for February 29. Turns out the date package only works with February 29 if you also pass the year, because otherwise it thinks that that's an invalid date. But after patching that up, I kept collecting all the weekly data. Now I can access the stock data and the news articles, but if I want to do some long-term analysis and not rack up unnecessary API charges or get my skull bashed in by Sundar for web scraping Google too much, I need to store all this information somewhere where I can quickly access them later. So I set up a PostgreSQL server using this scicopg package. I made a database for the ticker values and another database for the stock news and their sentiment. Within each database, I created a table for each ticker that I was going to follow, allowing me to quickly save or access this information. But the timestamps of the ticker data and the news articles data weren't matching for some reason. And after mashing my head into the screen for an hour, I finally figured out how silly of a mistake I was making. Turns out, some of these timestamps were in seconds and others were in milliseconds. So all I had to do was multiply the ones in seconds by 1,000. Once I corrected all the timestamps to be in milliseconds, I was able to access the news articles or the stock ticker values from my database using a server I set up using Python. All of these numbers would look so pretty if they only had a chance to become visualized. So here's the initial attempt using the matplotlib package. Then, in order to render this data on the front end, I started with a chart like this, which turned into this, and finally into this. But that wasn't all. I also wanted to overlay the news sentiment bubbles, which was the whole point of the project. I found this nice annotations package that was built on top of the charting package I was already using, which enabled me to place these sentiment bubbles, which were supposed to be sized and colored based on how many articles there were and how strong the sentiment was. Then I spent another couple of hours fixing these stupid x-axis markers, and at the end I just decided to indicate the passage of a day via these horizontal lines, and then I added some neat titles, which also took forever to get right, and this was the final result. Now I can acquire the stock data or the news data for any company in the stock market and store their values and render them on this chart. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time.